Guys, I'm starting to think I was too generous with 2 stars. Honestly, it might be 1. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Faith and thank you so much for watching. Today is March 1st, which means it's time for my February reading wrap-up. But it also means that it is the 1-year anniversary of this account. Yay! Technically, it's tomorrow, March 2nd, but there's not going to be a video tomorrow, so we're celebrating today. I love all of you, whether you're subscribed or not, and if you're not, that's okay, but you should be. And I don't have much else to say about that other than thanks for being here. But like I said, it is officially February wrap-up time. I read 8 books this month and I had 1 DNF, and guys, 5 of those books were arc reads. Because I had so many arc reads, I honestly didn't get to that many other books that I wanted to read this month. So I wasn't super focused on my physical TBR this month, and honestly, I don't even remember what I started the month with, but I did end it with 45 books on my physical TBR. 3 of those arc reads aren't released yet, so I will still be reviewing those books, but I will not put in any spoilers. But for the rest of the books, as always, there will be spoilers, so I'm gonna put timestamps of when I talk about each book in the description below. And without further ado, let's get into it. The first book I read was an arc of Fragile Hopes by Lisina, Coney, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. The characters were very realistic and so likable. Seriously, I loved them so much, and honestly, I think that they're one of the healthiest couples I've read about ever. The plot was so engaging and the pacing, guys, was pretty much perfect. Their transition into a relationship was seamless, and I don't know if I just paid extra attention to that in this book because the books I read before this one weren't that good pacing wise, but this book, it was very good. And the writing was just beautiful. It was so addicting, and I'm pretty sure I read the last like 60% of this book in one sitting. Also, we have to take a second to acknowledge this cover. I think it is gorgeous. Seriously, I loved this book so much, and it is the first book in a standalone series. And I think I know who and what book 2 is going to be about, and let's just say I am very excited for it. Fragile Hopes comes out on April 24th, and I would definitely mark your calendars because you need to read it. Also, I can't believe I forgot to say this. This is a firefighter romance, and it is also the first firefighter romance that I've ever read. Honestly, can't believe it's the first one, but it was, but it definitely will not be the last. The next book I read was an arc for Fresh and Forever by Lynn. I gave this one 3.5 stars, and honestly, I feel like I could lower it to 3. It was cute, but that's kind of all that it was, if I'm being honest. It started pretty strong and it ended pretty strong, but the middle was just pretty slow and it lulled a lot. The characters were likable to an extent. They did fall a little bit flat in my opinion. Because it's not out yet, I'm not going to spoil it, so this is going to be a little bit vague, but I will say the MMC does something that I really just can't get behind, and I think he was forgiven way too easily. There was also one small plot point that I really didn't like, and I cannot say what that was because it's a big spoiler, and honestly there's no way to be vague about it at all. Just know there was a minor plot point that I really did not like. And this last thing didn't really bother me, but I know it bothers some people, so I do think it's worth mentioning. There are a ton of pop culture references in this book. Like I said, it doesn't bother me personally. I kind of feel indifferent about pop culture references in books, but I will say it was a noticeable amount. So if that is something that bothers you, just take that into account before reading this book. This was my first Lynn book, and I know she has that other popular series. I think it's called like Nothing Like the Movies or Better Than the Movies. Something like that. And I do know a couple people who loved that book or that series and said that this book was meh. So even though this book kind of was just okay to me, it hasn't really turned me away from her other books just because I've heard people say that those books are better. And guys, after reviewing this out loud, I do think I'm going to change my rating to 3 stars. But even though I think it's cute, honestly, I probably wouldn't recommend it unless you're just looking for a very simple read. If you're looking for a super complex love story, this is definitely not that. But for those of you who are interested, it comes out on May 12th. And then my first non-arc read of the month was On Wings of Blood by Briar, Boleyn. I was so excited to read this book, so I'm really sad that I have to sit here and say that it was very disappointing. I tried so hard to convince myself that I liked this book, but honestly, once I sat down to like actually write out the review for it, I just could not do it. I ended up giving it 2 stars. I did not like Medra, the FMC, at all. Her character is incredibly flat and also incredibly inconsistent. You know those people who act different depending on who they're around? Like when they're around this person they act this way, and then when they're around this person they act a completely different way, and then with this person they're a completely different way? she's like that. But honestly, it doesn't come off as her being fake or anything. It comes off as the author couldn't decide what personality she wanted Medra to have, so she just gave her all of the above. Truthfully, I couldn't stand it. The plot is also so slow. And most of the time, incredibly boring. This book starts with Medra having just fallen into their world. And honestly, we're never even fully given a real reason why. To my understanding, she was in like a battle or something, and then like she was dying, and she used her powers for something, and she ended up in this world. Like, she wasn't even intentionally trying to get here, she just did. I don't know. It really didn't make any sense. But we're told that by her using her powers to do that, she has been drained of all of her powers and she now has no powers because she transported herself from her world to this world. But later, we find out that that's not what happened. First of all, her mother's soul has somehow ended up in her body, and I gotta say, didn't like that plot line at all, found it very weird. Like, halfway through this book, we find out that her mother is actually the reason that she ended up in this world. Medra was dying, and so picture her like, this is her world, this is Medra's soul like falling into death. Her mom just like reached out a hand, grabbed her, threw her, and she ended up in this world. Okay, that's cool. Where are her powers then? At the beginning of this book, you told us her powers are gone because she transported herself from her world to this world. But that didn't happen. So where are her powers? Like, that literally makes no sense, because now she should either have power or she should have an actual reason as to why she doesn't have them. My other issue with the fact that she was transported from her world to this world is the fact that she never, not one single time, even thinks about trying to get back to her world. She literally wakes up in this world completely unfamiliar with everything, obviously, and she's just like, cool with it. Literally less than 24 hours later, she is sitting in a classroom worried about, gotta get to my next class. What? I waited and waited and waited for her to at least have the thought of, maybe I can try to get back. Never happened. Medra's world has fae, and Medra is half fae. This world doesn't have fae, and this world, because of her hair color, they consider her a dragon rider. But she's not from this world, she's from her world. So she's not a dragon rider, she is half fae. And at one point in this book, they're talking about dragons, and she's like, I was born for this. No, you weren't. You are not from this world, you're from this other world. You were not born for dragons, there's no dragons in your world. You were not born to do anything with dragons. Guys, I'm starting to think I was too generous with 2 stars. Honestly, it might be 1. I just didn't like this book, and it was so disappointing because I wanted to love it. Also, I don't want to just diss on Medra. Blake, the MMC, I also could not stand him. He was so rude the entire time, and I just don't like him. And in case it's not obvious, I would not recommend this book. And when I had about 30 pages left of that dumpster fire, I got an email saying that I was approved for the arc of In Stormy Weather by Chelsea Curto. And in case you're new around here and don't know, I love Chelsea Curto. I've said it before and I'll say it again, Chelsea Curto can do no wrong. I loved this book so much. Easy 5-star read. Like, seriously, I am obsessed with this book. I say it about every one of her books and I'm gonna say it again. I love the way that she writes her characters. They're so realistic and they're just so likable. I absolutely love an FMC who will stand up for herself, but more than that, I love an MMC who knows she can defend herself, but will defend her anyway, and that perfectly describes Quincy and Sebastian. But as much as I loved them, Reginald stole my heart. If you know, you know. I cannot wait for you guys to meet him. Also, Quincy and Sebastian are Maverick Miller and Emmy Hartwell coded. In case you don't know, I love Mav and Emmy so much. Comparing another couple to them in a positive way is like the highest compliment I could ever give. And the plot was just so fun. I love how she touched on the harder parts of being a woman in STEM while also focusing on the more fun parts of being a meteorologist. For example, being out in the field during a storm. This book is more about hurricanes than tornadoes, but I will say, if you like Twister or Twisters, I really think you will love this book. Honestly, obsessed doesn't even accurately describe my feelings about this book. It comes out on July 14th, and I definitely recommend it. And surprise, surprise, my next read was another arc. I read the arc of Endgame by Willa and I gave it 3.5 stars. This book was really cute and I really liked both main characters. My dog is snoring right now, I apologize if you can hear him. Matt was completely obsessed with Elliot, and one of my favorite traits an MMC can have is being obsessed with his woman. It was pretty fast paced and honestly, I kind of liked that, and the pacing was consistent throughout the book. That being said, I do have one pretty big issue with this book. Towards the end of this book, Ellie does have a miscarriage. That is understandably a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. So if you're going to put a topic like that into your book, I think you need to do it with a lot of respect and care. And honestly, I don't really feel like that was the case in this book. Don't get me wrong, I do not think the author had any malicious intent, but it did feel like it was only there as an extra third act conflict, and I don't think that's the right reason to put that into a book. And I will add that part of my issue with it is the character's reaction to the miscarriage. I've never had a miscarriage, so I cannot speak from personal experience, and I'm sure everybody's experience with this is very different. However, it is made extremely clear throughout the entire book that Ellie does want kids, so I feel like her not really caring about having a miscarriage just made absolutely no sense with her character. A couple chapters after it happens, Matt does ask how she's feeling, and she says at first she was upset, but now she's feeling kind of abstract about it, and she feels like it just happened to somebody else and not her. I personally don't think anything that she or Matt said or did gave off that either of them was upset at all. Again, everyone's experience with it is different, but I really feel like the aftermath made no sense with their characters. And again, this is a very sensitive topic, and if you're going to include it, you need to do so with respect, and I really feel like it was just there as a third act conflict, and that is not the topic that you should really do that with. Other than that, I did really enjoy the book. The miscarriage part is my only issue with this book, but I do feel like it's a pretty big issue. If you are sensitive about miscarriages at all, I just probably would not read this book. But if you're kind of indifferent, then you could give it a try. And the next book I read was Sunny Disposition by Deanna Gray, and I gave it 4 stars. I have to start off by saying this book has the amnesia trope. I cannot stand that trope. Memory loss is one of my least favorite tropes ever. And going in, I didn't know that that would be in this book. I didn't read the summary. I honestly don't read the summaries with a lot of my books. I will see little snippets from the books and that will influence me to read them, and that is what happened with this book. And honestly, I'm glad that I didn't know about that, because if I knew about that going in, I never would have touched this book, and I actually really liked it. It was really cute, and I adored Naomi and Finn. Finn is so down bad for her, and I love that for her. The beginning is a bit confusing. It does jump around quite a bit, and with that memory loss thrown in there, it kind of adds to that confusion. It also did end kind of abruptly, and I do feel like there were a few plot points that weren't really concluded completely. That being said, this is book 1 in a series, so a couple of those plot points could be wrapped up in the other books. I just don't know because I have not read them yet. Other than those couple things, again, I really liked it. If you're like me and don't like books with memory loss, I will say you should still give this one a try because it was really cute, and honestly, yes, the amnesia part is super important to the story, but it's definitely not like overpowering, if that makes sense. Again, I gave it 4 stars and I would recommend it. And then I read the arc of Off the Ice by Sarah Kay, and I did have to DNF it. I was not a fan of the characters at all, and I did DNF at 10%, so that remaining 9%, there was definitely room for growth. I just could not finish it, guys. The MMC was very cocky, and he is a grown man, yet he is acting like an arrogant high schooler. Because I only read 10%, I feel like I can't accurately tell you whether I would recommend it or not. If you're looking for more indie hockey romances, that is what this book is, so you might as well give it a try. And then I read Saps and Secrets by Daphne Elliot, and I gave it 3.5 stars. This book is about a one-night stand that turned into a surprise baby, and it's a surprise because she did not know that she was pregnant until she was given birth. And it immediately starts with her giving birth, and I gotta say, I loved that because I just love books that start very quickly. Now, while it did start quickly, the 20% to 50% mark was definitely pretty slow, but after that halfway point, it does pick up a lot. I really liked Evie and Jasper. I think that they were really cute together and both very likable characters. But speaking of characters, there were too many. I was reading chapter 18 and I was like, am I going crazy, or is there an insane amount of characters right now? So I wanted to count the amount of characters there were in chapter 18 just to see if I was crazy or not. I read this on my Kindle, so I don't know the exact page count, but I would definitely say it's less than 10 pages. And this chapter that had less than 10 pages had 26 named characters. And that, to me, was insane. And listen, guys, I will admit, I'm kind of a petty person. So I decided, hey, let's count all the characters. So from that point on, every time a new character was named, I would write it down on the list, and I got up to 70. And that also doesn't include characters that had a part but weren't named. For example, Evie's dad. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, a less than 350 page small town romance book should not have 70 plus characters. Yes, it's a small town romance, but we don't need to name every single person in the town. I think at least 50 of those characters could have been cut out. There were maybe 10 important characters in the book, so throwing in all those extra names just kind of made it really confusing. Other than the slow part towards the beginning and the insane amount of characters, I did think that it was a really cute read. So I definitely think I would recommend it, but just know if you read it, you need to be paying very close attention or those names will get very confusing very quickly. And now we are at my final read of the month, which was actually my book club's February book, which was We Who Will Die by Stacia Stark. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I did like it. It was just so slow. Slower than this. Honestly, it felt like all of the action scenes and the parts that could be super engaging were very short. I'm talking like 1 to 2 pages, 3 max. And then all the in-between slower, more descriptive parts were way too long. I did like the characters. There's definitely some complexity to all of them, which is always nice to see. There's also a lot of twists, which I love, especially when I don't see them coming. And honestly, some of them I did, but some of them I didn't. And I loved Tiernan. The whole time I was like, please let him be the main love interest. But honestly, the more I read, the more I realized this dude is kind of a pushover, and I hate that. And as much as I was hoping for him to be the main love interest the whole time, the second that Rorik called her Little Rabbit, I was like, oh, it's him. Now that I've finished, I'm more neutral about who I want as the love interest, but I do think I'm still leaning a bit towards Tiernan. I just hope if it's Rorik, he does get a lot nicer. I definitely liked it enough to continue the series. I just really hope that the second book is quicker with the pacing. Honestly, I would say that this is worth the read. You just need to go in knowing that it is going to be very slow. And those are the 8 books plus 1 DNF that I read this month. I only had 2 5-star reads this month, which for me is not a lot at all. But there are so many books coming out in March that I'm so excited for. For example, In Her Own League by Liz Tom40 and Love Song by Elle Kennedy. So I'm really hoping that March is better. Again, 1 year into this account, thank you all for being here. And I think that that is all that I have for you guys today. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow my Instagram and my TikTok that are in the description below for more bookish content. I hope you all had a great reading month, and I hope you have a better one in March. Love you guys. Bye!